Good morning. Okay, so we'll now begin. So we have this booklet on Shavuos, which means this week we'll be spending on, instead of learning a mimer, we'll be learning about how do we understand and how do we prepare for Shavuos. We know that every time there's a Yontif, you're supposed to prepare, according to one opinion, 2 weeks before, according to another opinion, 30 days before, in terms of the halacha. Because even though we learned all the halachas last year, and some people have been doing it for the last 30 years, 50 years, nevertheless, every time a Yontif comes around, you watch people sitting by the table, are we supposed to do it this way? Supposed to do it that way? Because we forget. And it's not 100% clear. So every year we have to review the halachas, and that's how we prepare for every Yontif. So just like we prepare for the Yontif, technically, physically, by knowing the halachas, what to do, what not to do, is also preparing for the Yontif spiritually, to understand, be able to appreciate what the spiritual significance of this Yontif is, and what we're meant to experience, what we're meant to gain and absorb spiritually. And the more we're prepared, the more we're able to benefit from what this holy day has to offer. So instead of learning one mimer, which usually covers one subject, we have here a collection of many subjects, a little bit of everything. What is it that Chassidus talks about when it comes to Shavuos? These are the most common and the most known subject discussed in Chassidus. And the first few pages in the booklet, the first 5 pages, has quotes, psukim, quotes from Gemara. Each one represents one of those subjects that we're talking about. So the first 11 things on the page, from 1 to number 11, more or less connected to one subject, which we'll soon see. And it's based on that which is written in Gemara, like everything else. So we'll first learn what the Gemara says, and then we'll go into it, how we understand it from a Hasidic perspective. And I see that some of you didn't realize that we actually have the booklets here in the room, Nati. This is for Miriam. And this is for whoever comes in next. Okay. So, with many Yom Tovim, there's a Gemara. There's a Gemara that's all about Shabbos, and that's what the name of the Gemara is, Masechta Shabbos. There's a Gemara about Yom Kippur, and that's called Masechta Yuma. There's an entire Gemara about Pesach that's called Masechta Pesachim. There's a Gemara on Rosh Hashanah called Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Gemara on Purim called Masechta Megillah. And there is a Gemara called Sukkot, but there's no Gemara that's on Shavuos. But if you can look at the Gemaras, you'll say, wow, how do you make such a big mistake? There's a Gemara, it's called Shavuos. So it's not a mistake, I'm telling you in advance. That Gemara is about oaths, the laws pertaining to an oath. It's also called a Shavuot. It's not about the holiday of Shavuos. Nevertheless, in Gemara Shabbos, there are a few pages that is known as the Sugya of Matan Torah, which means this is a place in Gemara where we find more concentrated midrashim and different things that relate to Matan Torah. And that's what I'm going to read from. We're going to learn together that from that Gemara Shabbos. Why Dafka Shabbos? One of the reasons that are given is that we find there are different opinions when exactly was the Torah given. Some say it was the 6th day of Sivan, some say it was the 7th day of Sivan. It's not clear what day in the month it was. One thing is clear, and all opinions agree, what day in the week it was. What day in the week was it? It was Shabbos. And so we see already that there's an association between Matan Torah and Shabbos. So these midrashim about Matan Torah, they're all in Masechta Shabbos. I shouldn't say all, there are scattered different things all over Shas, but here they are found in a more concentrated way. So if somebody wants to learn this subject more in depth and with all its details, they would first go to this Gemara Masechta Shabbos. So I made a copy here. This is from the Art Scroll. Hebrew English, and I'd like to start with page 16. I'm looking at the numbers at the bottom of the page. Is that where I'm starting? Yeah. Okay, page 16, the second column. The second column, in the middle of the page, it says, Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said the following. Yishah Shalom Moshe Lamorim, when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shamayim to receive the Torah, Omru Malach Hashar Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ministering angels said to Hashem, Rabbeinu Shalom, Master of the universe, Mali Yelud Isha Beneinu. What is this human being born of a mother, of a woman, doing here? There are angels there. How does a human being come here? Amalahem, so the Eibishter answered the angels, the Kabul Torah boy came to receive the Torah. Amru Lefanav, so the angels argued and they said, Chamuda Genuza, this coveted treasure Torah, Shegenuza Loch, Sham Meyes, V'shivim Barba Deres Kedem Shevreilim. You have it stored away in your treasures for 974 generations before the world was even created. And this is something which you're watching and protecting and hiding in your treasures. That you want to give the bus of Adam to humans of flesh and blood? Ma enesh kisis kerena uven adam kisif kedena. This is a quote from a pasuk in Tehillim, which means, what is a man that you should remember him, and the son of man that you should recall him? Hashem Adonai Moed Shimcha B'chol Haaretz. Your name is so great all over the world. You should rather bestow your glory on the heavens, which means give us the Torah, not the humans. Let's go to the next page, 17. Top of the page, so Hashem said to Moshe, Hazel and Shuv, Moshe, answer them. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Rabbeinu Shalom, Master of the universe, I'm afraid of them. Shemi Yisrafuni b'havli shabapiyam. They could burn me with the breath of their mouths. The angels, I'm not going to debate with the angels. They could devour me with their fire, meaning their holiness. So the Eibishter said to him, Echayz b'kisei kvodi, hold on to my throne of glory, v'hazal and tshuva, and you'll be able to give them an answer. Of course, this is a metaphoric language, but basically it says, if you hold on to my throne, you will have me behind you, and I will empower you, I will enable you to answer them, don't worry. Which, by the way, we see an interesting thing. Holding on to the chair of the Eibishter gives you a koyach. And the same applies to tzaddikim, that you hold on to an object of a tzaddik. If you touch or you see or you have a connection to even an object that a tzaddik was holding on to, it gives you a certain spiritual power. Shanema, as it says, this is based on a pasuk, Ma'aches pnei kisei parshes olav anoni. That the Eibishter says, hold on to the face of the throne, and Hashem will spread his cloud over him, meaning Hashem will empower him. Amar Rav Nachum, and Rav Nachum said, Lamed, this teaches us that Hashem spread some of his radiance, of his presence and his cloud upon Moshe, and that empowered him not to be afraid of the angels, and to be able to stand up to them and to defend what he was doing. Amar Lefanav. So he said to Hashem, answering the angels, Rabbeinu Shalom, Torah Shata Neisani, this Torah that you're giving me, Maksiba, what does it say there? I am God, your God, that took you out of Egypt. Then he turned to the angels and he said, did you ever descend to Egypt? The Pare Mishtabatem, Ishtabatem, were you enslaved to Pare? Teira Lama Telechem, so how does the Torah relate to you? Then he went on to the next one. The next commandment is La Yilach Alakim Acherim. You shouldn't worship any other gods. Vein Amim Atem Shruyim. Do you live among the nations of the world that worship other gods? Let's turn to page 18. So therefore, the second commandment also doesn't apply to you. You have no issues with worshiping other gods. The next one is Zacher Es Yom HaShabbos Akachi. Remember Shabbos to sanctify it. Klumat HaMoisem Malacha. Do you engage in work throughout the week that you need to rest on Shabbos? Shuv Maksibu. Let's see what else it says there. Leisisa. Don't take an oath in the name of Hashem, which is in vain. Masa Matnish Bechem. Do you do business transactions? What do you do in oath? There's a business transaction. There are issues in business, partnership, and we don't know whether this person's saying the truth or lying. So we tell him to swear that what he says is true. So angels don't engage in business. So how does the oath apply to them? Let's see what else it says. Honor your father and mother. You have a father and a mother that you have to honor. Let's see what else it says. Do not kill. Leisinav, do not commit adultery. Leisignav, do not steal. Kiniyesh bechem, do you have envy amongst you? You have a yitzhara amongst you that the Torah has to tell you don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. And as soon as he finished saying this, Miyad Hoidul HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said that you're right. And the angels conceded, they saw that he's right. And then they said, there's a pasuk. This, I think, in chapter Ches, I think chapter 8 in Tehillim. Hashem Adonenu, Moad Shimcha, and at the end of that chapter, it doesn't say the same words. It doesn't say bestow your glory on the heavens, because at this point they saw that he's right. Now the angels who were upset at him before, that he's coming to take away the Torah from them, now they became his friends, to Moshe Rabbeinu. And not only that, the angels gave him gifts. Each angel gave him something. The second column here on page 18. Shenem, as it says, Olisa Lamare Moshe, you ascended to the heavens. Shavisa Shevi, you captured a captive, and you took gifts. The captive is the Torah. And not only that the angels weren't upset that you took away the Torah from them, they actually gave you gifts. A reward for bearing the insult that angels calls you, oh, this is just a mortal, a man, flesh and blood, and nobody. So now they sort of wanted to compensate for that, so they gave him a gift. And not only that, Af Malach HaMavis, even the angel, which is the opposite of life, we don't pronounce what it is. Shenemar, he also gave him a gift. What did he give him? There was a plague. And Moshe Rabbeinu put the incense and lit the incense, and that stopped the plague. He stood between the dead and the alive, and it stopped it with the incense. How did he know the secret that the incense would be able to eliminate the angel which caused the opposite of life? If not for the fact that the angel revealed the secret to him, he wouldn't have known. So that's his gift. So naturally, this Gemara is nice. You can tell it to children. It's a nice little story. And the debate between Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid that they're going to blow fire out of their mouths and burn them up. But of course, every word is there's so much depth to it. And the big question in Chassidus is, if you would see Moshe Rabbeinu explain something very deep, very philosophical, wow, the angels couldn't have thought of it. What did he tell them? He told them that all the 10 commandments don't apply to you. You're not physical people. So it's, what do they say in English? A no-brainer. Anybody can figure that out. So obviously their argument was a deep argument. And Moshe Rabbeinu's answer was even a deeper answer. And we'll go into the Chassidus and explain it. That's one Gemara. Now I want to go to another Gemara, which is even more shocking than this one. And that's on page 21. No. Okay,
Thank you.
just for today. Yeah. I thought you had one. I still-
No, just for sure.
we have to change the colors. Okay. The Gemara says on page 721, it's Gemara Baba Metzia, chapter 4, famous Gemara, Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis, 59 on the second side. It's discussing what is achnoi. Achnoi is a type of an oven. What kind of name is achnoi? So the Gemara says, do you see what is an arrow there? You have an arrow there, or I just have it on mine? No. Okay, on top of the page, it's all the way on top. What is meant by the coiled serpent? Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel said, in the name of Shmuel, that it means that regarding this kind of oven, the sages surrounded the oven with discussions like coiled snake, and they declared it susceptible to tumah. We know there is a whole masechta, a whole segment in Torah that deals with laws of purity and impurity. Which things are susceptible to tumah, which not, what kind of impurity, different levels of impurity, first, second, third. So there's an oven that's built in a certain way, and there was a question in halacha, would this become impure or not? And there was a discussion among the sages. Well, what else is new? The whole Torah is like that. No, this was something which shook the world when this was going on. And here's the story. The Brisa tells us about the debate surrounding the oven, Tana. On that historic day, and you'll soon see why it was a historic day. So there was the controversy was between one person, Rabbi Lezer, and all the other sages. He had one opinion, and all the sages had another opinion. And he argued with them, and he gave them all the answers in the world to defend and support his opinion. His opinion was lenient, that it should be pure. Well, they kibble him, and the sages did not accept his argument. Everything he said, they refuted. After going back and forth with these arguments, he said like this, if the halacha is according to my opinion, let this carob tree prove that there was a carob tree near the yeshiva. And he said, let something miraculous happen with the carob tree, and then you'll know that I'm right. And sure enough, there was a miracle. The carob tree miraculously was uprooted from its place, and it moved 100 amos away, and some say 400 amos away. So the sages said, unimpressed. Why not? We're having a halachic discussion. We don't bring proof from carob trees what the halacha is going to be. Chazav Amalem said again, if the halacha is like what I'm saying, let this water canal prove it. There was obviously water flowing, and he said, let the water prove it. And the water which is flowing in one direction, the water began to flow in the opposite direction against nature. And again, the sages said, unimpressed. Don't bring proof from water. Again, this is a halachic discussion. Water doesn't make the decision for us. It's between the sages. So he went again, a third time. If the halacha is like me, let the walls of the yeshiva, of this yeshiva where we're learning, let the walls declare that I'm right. And sure enough, the walls began to lean, about to fall. Immediately Rabbi Yeshua screamed at the walls, and he said, if Torah scholars are having an issue with each other and discussing halacha, what are you getting involved for? You walls, stay out of it. It's none of your business. What happened? The walls didn't fall down because Rabbi Yeshua screamed at them. But they didn't stand up straight because Rabbi Lezer told them to fall. And in fact, the Gemara, the Gemara is a later generation than the Mishnah. These are sages from the Mishnah. I don't know how many years later it was, but many years later. It could have been even 100 years later. Could be in the notes they say how much later it was. But the Gemara says the walls are still that way. They're half bent in. They didn't fall all the way because he said to them, stop. They didn't stand up straight because he said to them that they should fall. So if you walk to this shul now, you'll see it's leaning. Then he finally said a fourth thing. He said, okay, if the water is not good enough, and the tree is not good enough, and the walls are not good enough, let heaven itself declare that I'm right. And sure enough, a heavenly voice came out and said, Malachem Eitz Rabbi Lezer. What are you arguing with Rabbi Lezer? Halacha k'maisa b'chol mokum. The halacha always follows his opinion everywhere. Rabbi Shua wasn't intimidated. He stood up on his feet and he said, Lei b'shamayim, the Torah is not in heaven. We're not accepting what the heavenly voice is saying. The Gemara says, "My lei b'shamayim." What does it mean the Torah is not in heaven? Rabbi Yirmiyah said, the Torah was already given at Har Sinai, and once Hashem gave it at Har Sinai, we don't pay attention to the heavenly voices. In the Torah it says, Achrei Rabim Lahatis. When there's a halachic question, you have to gather the sages, the Sanhedrin, and they have to follow the majority. The majority of the sages, that's how we rule. And therefore, once the Torah is given, that's what we go by, not by heavenly voices. Ashkeche Reb Nosson Eliyahu. Reb Nosson, again, who lived much later, he met Eliyahu Hanavi. And he said to me, I'm curious to know, what did Hashem do when this was going on? Imagine, Hashem announces, the halacha is Rakel Rabbi Lezer. And a man from down here, Rabbi Shua, gets up and says, sorry, the Torah is down here. We don't hear what you have to say. We go by the majority of our people. Hashem must have been like fuming. He says, no. Hashem was actually smiling and laughing. And he said, I'm so proud. My children have prevailed over me. My children have prevailed over me. This is one of the Gemara that without Chassidus, you can do 10 somersaults. It's just not gonna be. How does it make any sense? Could you imagine, Lahavdil, you write a book, and then people are arguing what you meant, what the author meant. And the author says, let me tell you what I meant. I'm sorry. Once you wrote the book, you have no right to say anything anymore. We're going to make the decision what you meant. Okay? That's basically what happened here. I'll let you figure it out yourself. Now, so let's go back to the beginning now. Look at the first page. Number one is this quote that I just gave. Torah lo b'shamayim. This is a famous quote, but it's based on this story. Torah is not in heaven. And in fact, this is the halacha. If a navi, if a prophet would come along and say, I'm a prophet and I'm telling you what halacha is, I see this with my prophecy, you should know, according to halacha, it's not acceptable. There has to be a basis in halacha, not prophecy. Torah has to be judged by learning, studying a source. And if a prophet comes along, he can come along and say, Hashem told me to tell you to do this and this. But if it's a halacha question and he's using prophecy to figure out what the halacha, that's not going to be valid in our the way Torah is set up. So we need to explain this quote. Number two is the other quote. This is the quote of the angels. Bestow your glory on the heavens. This was the argument. Number three are the words of Moshe Rabbeinu in response. Yetzirah yesh b'chem, really disagree with the question mark. Do you have a Yetzirah? Number four, Ava ein yesh lechem, do you have a father and a mother? And then all the rest. So to explain this, I'm going to bring in another thing, and that is number five. There's another famous quote, Alpayim Shana Kodma Torah La'olam. The Torah is 2,000 years. The Torah preceded the creation by 2,000 years. In fact, even in this Gemara that we just learned, had a different number. It said 970 something generations, but still it also says that the Torah existed over 900 generations before creation. Here it says 2,000 years before creation. How does that make sense? The Torah is all about what happened with Abraham, what happened with Yitzhak, what happened with Yaakov, what you do with the field, and how you do things in marriage, and divorce, and kavanah, sacrifices, the Beis Hamikdash. It's all about this gashmistical world, the whole Torah. How could you say that the Torah existed It's about going out of Mitzrayim, doing things to remember Mitzrayim. How could the Torah have existed before these things even happened? There's a similar statement, and that is based on the pasuk number 6. I put it in the booklet because it's always helpful to see the actual pasuk. So let's look at page 36 in this booklet, and we're looking at Mishlei, Proverbs from Shlomo Melech. It's underlined. And it says, "V'eya etzli omen." I was his nursling. So this is a metaphor as if Hashem raised us. We're the little children. Hashem raised us like a mother who raises and nurses a child. But the Gemara says there's also another definition to the word omen. And the word omen means to be used like a person who is, has a certain skill, a certain craft, is called an uman. So Eya Esli Omen means, this is what the Gemara says, number 7. The Torah are the tools with which Hashem created the world. That's what it means. Just like a builder has tools. He has an axe, he has a hammer, he has a saw, he has different tools with which he builds. So the Eibishter built the world with the Torah. The Torah are the tools, which also implies that the Torah preceded the world. And actually, not only preceded in some sort of a passive way, but the Torah is actually the tools with which Hashem created the world. Number 8 is another quote in Gemara. No, this is a quote from the Zohar. Istakol be'eraisa ubara alma. Hashem looked into the Torah and he created the world. In fact, the full quote is that the Torah is like an architect. When he builds a house, he has a piece of paper where the whole building is drawn on the paper. And the architect makes that picture where the doors are going to be, where the windows are going to be, and where the steps are going to be, and where every detail is going to be. And then the builders look at this blueprint, and from the blueprint, they build the building. So the Torah is Hashem's blueprint. Hashem looked into the Torah, and based on what it says in the Torah, that's how he created the world. These are all statements that are pretty much saying the same thing, that Hashem created the Torah, the world with the Torah, through the Torah. The Torah preceded creation. The Torah is the model for creation. So how can we understand that? So the answer to that is, we'll start with number 9, Moshel HaKadmoni. What is Moshel HaKadmoni? So let's look in the booklet again, page 37, see the source. The source is again Mishlei. No, so sorry. Shmuel. It's in Tanakh, but in the book of Shmuel. And it says, Kasher Yoima Moshel HaKadmoni. If you look in the English, it says, this is like the ancient proverb, and gives a proverb. But the Gemara says, Moshel HaKadmoni is alluding to the Torah. Why? Kadmoni, the word kadmon, is like the Hebrew, in Hebrew, the word koda means before. Hashem is called kadmon. He is before everything and anything. He was the first one to exist. He is the beginning of all beginnings. So he's called kadmon. And the Torah is his proverb. Torah is his mashal. Torah is his metaphor. So the Torah is called the Moshel HaKadmoni. So what does it mean that the Torah is Hashem's mashal? So this is something which we had in other places, hopefully be easy to understand, but we'll go into it briefly, and with this we'll be able to understand all the previous questions. So you probably remember, and this has come up and should come up quite often when you learn Chassidus, is that the Gemara says, a mashal is something outstanding, to the extent that in Gemara, there's a list of people that the Gemara says they were such outstanding sages that when they passed away, it wasn't just that they passed away, but an entire era ended. They were the last person to uphold a certain era. And when that was over, when they passed away, no longer did people have the power to live on these same high spiritual standards as before. One of those people is Reb Meir. And the Gemara says when Reb Meir passed away, that was the end of era of Mishalim. People no longer made Mishalim. What does that mean? On the surface, it's very hard to understand because a mashal is not such a big deal. And every one of us, if somebody would lock me up in a room and say, I give you 2 hours, create a mashal for any subject in Torah, it wouldn't be that hard. Once we know Hashem is like the husband and the Yidden are like the wife, or Hashem is the king and we are his subjects, you can find a parallel between a king of flesh and blood and his people, a husband and a wife, a chassid and a kala. Compare it to Hashem and the Yidden, boom, you got a mashal. Not so hard. A little creativity. The Gemara said Reb Meir gave 300 mishalim. Oh, 300 mishalim, that's already something really exceptional. No. Take me a little bit longer. Give me a year, I'll put together 300 mishalim. And the Gemara says he was the most brilliant of all the sages in his generation. Nobody was able to understand his teachings full depth. So that's the greatness, that he can have 300 nice little parables. So the way it's explained in Chassidus is like this. There's a mashal and there's a mashal. When I give a mashal, I'll say, oh, this is like technology, or this is like a king. These are mashal that we all give, and everybody can give this mashal. It makes the concept a little bit, simpler to relate to. Sometimes the mashal makes it a little bit more pleasant because it's a little story, it's easier to follow, but that's not what the Gemara is talking about. The real definition of the mashal, when it's really used in the full sense of the word, is because we know that the teacher of Torah, I'm not talking about a regular teacher, but teacher of Torah like the Tanoim, Amoraim, the sages, they were on a very high level. And they understood Torah on a very deep level, very deep, abstract level of intelligence. And they had a hard time teaching it to their students, simply because the students were not on the same level as intelligent as they. They're not as spiritual as they were. So they had to find a way to take what they understood and sort of bring it down to the students. And that's what we know as tzimtzum. But I'm not talking about tzimtzum of Hashem, I'm talking about tzimtzum of humans. Have to take what I understand and think of anything that you understand, because you learned a mimer, you learned a sicha, and somebody who never studied Chassidus would ask you, what does this mean? And you want to explain it to them, but because they don't have the background knowledge, you have to try to find ways and words and sentences in order to explain to them. So the sages always had to sort of condense the depth of their understanding, and that's the only way they were able to communicate to their students. However, there are certain sages that what they understood was so deep and so abstract that no matter how much they would simplify it, and no matter how much they would condense it, no matter how much they would find words and phrases and quotes to be able to make it acceptable to the student, it would still be too abstract for them to get it. There's no way, no matter how much they try to explain it. And the only way they could explain it is through a mashal. So basically a mashal they could get, because a mashal is not really a philosophical concept. It's a story. And it's a story about something, an animal or people, and the story they get. In that story, that's where the depth of this wisdom is invested. And as they get older, slowly and gradually, they'll look into the story, and piece by piece, by piece by piece, they'll figure out all the depth that's in the story. Some of you might remember this from other classes. Maybe you'll tell me what it is. The Gemara says that Rabbi Meir gave 300 mishalim. So what does it mean? That was 300 times that he understood things deep? No, that's not what it means. It means that the depth of his understanding was so deep that even a mashal didn't suffice. He needed a mashal to explain his mashal. And even that wasn't enough. He needed a mashal to explain the mashal for the mashal. And basically he needed 300 mishalim to get what he understood across to his students. We don't even have a concept of what kind of depth that could possibly be. Can anyone in this room give me a mashal to explain what I just said?
The babushka dolls.
The babushka dolls is a very good mashal. I'll give you a mashal where we all experience this really, and this gives us some concept of what we're talking about. If somebody wants to explain the difference between the spheres of Chochmah and Bina, spheres in Atzilus, can't explain it. So what does the Maimer do? And says, let's look at a human being, the difference between the faculty of Chochmah in the brain and the faculty of Bina in the brain. So now Chochmah and Bina in the brain of a human being is the mashal for the spheres, because it's inconceivable to think that the spheres by Hashem are like my brain. It's a mashal. Now, if you're talking to a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, you can't explain Chochmah and Bina of the brain even because he doesn't get it. So you explain to him the difference between fire and water. And water brings things together like cement. You have flour, you put water, brings it together. Fire takes things apart. Okay, now I understand. The difference between Chochmah and Bina, doesn't understand. But he understands the difference between fire and water. But when he gets older, he'll realize how Chochmah and Bina are perfect mashal for, fire and water, the perfect mashal for Chochmah and Bina. But what just happened now is we gave a mashal for the mashal. We gave a mashal to understand Chochmah and Bina in the brain. And that's only a mashal to understand the spheres of Hashem. So Meir understood things on the 300th level of depth. So he needed a mashal for a mashal for a mashal for a mashal. And then when it comes to Shlomo Melech, he gave 3,000 Meshalim. There's a pasuk where it says he gave 3,000 Meshalim. Again, on the surface, okay, he was the most brilliant person that ever existed, so you need more time, but still, what's the wisdom here? He needed 3,000 Meshalim to explain others what he understood. So how many Meshalim does Hashem need? Infinite, right? And that's what it means. The Torah is Hashem's mashal. What we see in the Torah, the wisdom in Torah, even the wisdom we see in the Torah, the wisdom in the story of Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov and Moshe and Paro, Bnei Yisrael, the wisdom we see in the laws of kashrus, the wisdom that we see in the laws of marriage and the laws of divorce and the laws of monetary issues and the laws of agricultural issues, all the wisdom there is really a mashal for something much deeper intellectually, which is a mashal for something much deeper, and it goes on and on and on until the deepest depth of the mashal. So that basically means that all the wisdom of Torah, even though the wisdom that's in the Torah is applied to the story of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to going out of Mitzrayim, but the principle of logic that's there is something much, much deeper. And in fact, the principle of logic precedes the logic the way it's in the Torah, just like the mashal. The principle of logic that's independent of a mashal precedes the mashal. The mashal is an application. I take that principle of logic and I apply it to a mashal. But the logic itself is first. So, for example, if I ask you a question, if a bird is flying, there's brilliance into the idea, the way a bird is put together, physically, biologically. There's a brilliant science to how come a bird could fly. So the science of it came first, or the bird came first? Of course. First, there's the science of it, the principle of science. And based on that principle, the bird is sort of a manifestation of that principle of logic. The bee is a manifestation of a different principle of logic. And humans are a manifestation of a different principle of logic. So the whole world is a manifestation of Hashem's brilliance. The whole Torah is a manifestation of Hashem's brilliance. So the Torah, the way we know it, is a mashal. And the real wisdom that's in Torah is Hashem knows that wisdom. And that's basically the hidden secrets that are there in Torah. And that came before. One more word before we close. There's another very famous quote, number 10. And again, only if you really study Chassidus could you understand it fully. It says, people think the Torah talks about earthly things, but there's also lessons that you can learn, and it alludes to spiritual things. It's just the opposite. The Torah is really talking about spiritual things. but it's alluding to and it's manifesting that spiritual thought in things that are physical. That's number 11. 10. So when it says something in the Torah that Hashem put Adam to sleep and he created Chava, then you look into Chassidus or Kabbalah, it says that this and this happened to the sphere of Malchus and Zoh, and this went up and this went down and this was hidden and this was revealed. That's really what happened. Down here it manifested in Adam going to sleep and Chava being created from Adam and so on and so forth. And the same with the whole Torah. And that's basically what Chassidus is, to go a little bit deeper into the deeper layer, what is behind every halacha, every word, every nuance in Torah has a deeper depth to it, and this is a mashal for that deeper depth. Now, it doesn't take away the physical, that you have to do this and this physically, and it means that physically Adam did this, and Chava did that, and Avram did this, and Yitzchak did that, but there's a deeper depth what's behind everything that they did. Just like the bird is a physical creature, but the depth of the bird, the real brilliance of the bird is the science behind it, which from that principle, I guess, came about the creation of airplanes and the creation of jets and the creation of space rockets. We're flying to the moon, we're flying to I think to Mars already. And basically, look at the brilliance that's there, and all came out of something that Hashem created by analyzing it and looking into it, figured out the wisdom and the brilliance in nature. So with this, we'll understand the answer to all those questions if you come tomorrow. Yes.
Because Hashem had to look into the Torah to create, doesn't that negate the principle of Yeshmael?
No, he looked into the Torah how to create the details of creation. The very creation is Yeshmael. But the details, that this is Yeshmael an apple, this is Yeshmael a pear, this is a human, this is an animal, this is a tree, and all the other details, that's the shtalshelus, that's the ilavolu part.
Oh, right.
Okay, all the best, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We should be having school on Friday, the way it stands now. Usually we don't have school Erev a Yom Tov, but this year Erev Yom Tov is on Sunday. Unless we get word from everyone that they're just emergency, they need to do all their preparations for Yom Tov and they can't handle it. Baruch Adonai. Oh, shit. Oh,
Oh, you know, it's funny. Everyone's making that same mistake. Everyone's like,